How many of you have been checking the football scores? You are very dedicated. You are here, and there's football on. And I'm not your usual American, but I am a diehard football fan. And it is still tied 0-0 for those of you who wanted to know. And Portugal is winning 1-0. And why is that important? It's important because there have been 2 yellow cards in the Germany-US game, which means they can't be fixing the score because they're beating each other and beating each other and beating each other. So in the spirit of being here and being at the end of your day, I wanted to share with you some examples. And when we look at disruptive can happen in many different ways. And I want to start by telling you a story about Lily, because this story about Lily is about creating disruption just by doing the simple things in business. Lily's a 3.5-year-old girl, and she wrote a letter to her local grocer. For those of you who've been into a grocer and seen bread that looks kind of odd, they call it tiger bread. Only the look of the bread doesn't look like tiger, it looks like a giraffe. But Lily didn't understand, so she sent a letter, and her mom posted it on Facebook. Well, she got a letter back from this particular grocer. And the grocer said, you know, back when they invented tiger bread, which was, I don't know, about 1,000 years ago, it looked like what they thought a tiger would look like. But you're right, it doesn't look like a giraffe. So this particular grocer changed it, and 1,000 people on Facebook went and liked her page. Well, the better part about this was this particular grocer changed and made a moment. Little thing popped up here. They maximized that moment. They maximized the experience with that particular customer, and they did something very special. They built advocacy. For those of you who haven't seen the studies, advocacy changes your revenue model. It changes your profitability. And they did it with something simple, something that they could control. And maximizing the moment, there are many different places that people and businesses can maximize the moment, and many opportunities for you to influence your customer. And you can influence your customer directly, and you can influence it indirectly. This is achievable today. It's not just fiction, and I'm going to share with you some examples of companies. But before I do so, I want to tell you a little bit about some of the surveys that we've conducted, because they provide you a data point. 36,000 customers we surveyed this year. We surveyed 36 or 37,000 last year, and the year before that, going on 6 years now. This past year, we had 3 very convincing statements that stood out. And this is your customer talking about you as a business. So this is your end consumer. It could be a business to business. It could be business to consumer. That end consumer of goods and services said that the business they were conducting business with did not understand them. They didn't feel they were connecting with them. And they always felt like it was too hard. Now, I could go in deep on statistics, but let's just assume that those 36,000 people spoke for the greater good. And these were French citizens, British, American, Indian. They were from all over the world, but one common message. So let's assume that they were right. What would we need to do to change how we engage our customers? And the concept that I want to talk about first here is building a theatrical experience. How do we create a theater? Now, when you think of a theater, you think of something like this, with lights and a stage. But I want you to shift how you think about a theater. I want you to think about it as it's the customer. And here I am, on stage with lights on me. And every other interaction is now the theater. How do I build my brand interactions so that I can put the customer at that heart and make the theater around him? so that every time he interacts, he is being engaged in that perfect manner, in that next best action, I've heard the term used. And the example I wanted to use is Abercrombie & Fitch. Now, digitally, that's what you'll see when you enter Abercrombie & Fitch online. You also see it when you enter in their store. But their store is designed to be very theatrically focused. And this has been something that they've built over time. When Abercrombie & Fitch first started, and my background, for those of you who aren't aware, I spent 6 years as the head of e-commerce, VP of e-commerce and international expansion for Abercrombie & Fitch in Abercrombie's formative years. So this time in physical stores and the magazine and the events, that's when I started with Abercrombie. Now, over time, we launched the first website, email, YouTube, mobile web, Facebook, mobile apps, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. All of these are different avenues a customer engages with Abercrombie. And we have to manage the theater experience in all of them. Now, disruption is the ability to manage all of these while your competition cannot. Now, Abercrombie's faced with going to new markets like China, and they're going to serve up almost 1 billion impressions. Think about managing the theater for 1 billion impressions now. That's what our goal is as retailers, as CMOs, as VPs of e-commerce. I need to manage that theater in all of these opportunities. Because at the end of the day, it needs to look like this. Beautiful people in a store with great merchandise that makes me feel young and makes me part of a community. But I don't have any hair and I have glasses, so I'm not allowed to stand in the row with all the pretty guys anymore. You're allowed to laugh. It is funny. I used to be that good looking. That was a long time ago. But it's not just about fashion apparel and retail, right? I know it's easy to say, yeah, that's Abercrombie. They're like that. I want to take you to the other end of the spectrum. Do it yourself. How many people in here paint a bedroom? Hands? Only 5 people paint a room in their house? Seriously? Come on. Honesty here. Are you all that rich? Maybe I should move to France if somebody can do all of my projects. How many in here have a garden? And ever planted? Thank you. Now we get some more honesty. Homebase is a company that sells, toilets and lumber and paint and projects that you and I can do at home, and we should, and we could save money. Now, not what you would expect for a DIY store. When I think of old hardware stores, they're dirty, they're maybe not as clean, but in the new age of building a theater, do-it-yourself has to be very clean and organized and friendly. And more importantly, it has to be woman-friendly. So the bathrooms have to be freshly painted, they have to be clean, they have to be in order in the store experience. Well, if I'm really going to target that market and not just be the dad of the family who goes home and he's going to be Mr. Fix-It and he's going to buy the part that fixes whatever it is at home that's broken, now it's everybody in the family can go. So they're repositioning their brand and their theater to helping everybody live in a home they love. Now, you got to start somewhere. And with them, it was this concept that in order to build the experience, they had to help her envision what she wanted to achieve. Now, you wouldn't think intuitively that they need to help with the planning of a project. But they do, because it instills confidence. And they help her start with the small project and then work her way up. So while she's not an interior decorator, she does have the opportunity to grow over time in confidence to take on an entire room. And as you can see online, just as you saw in the store earlier, it's clean, it's neat, it's organized, and it helps her get started. Now, when you continue online, it takes her through projects, makes recommendations, and provides help and advice. It's no longer just about transacting a good. Yes, they sell hammers. Yes, they sell screws. But it's about building a relationship. It's about building confidence in the customer. It's about building advocacy, and you're going to hear that repeatedly. Building that community and building advocacy. Now, you can't just have a website and a store. You have to have the mobile experience, and it has to be clean and easy and follow the same ideas, because she's not going to sit in one medium. She's busy. She's going to check on the bus, maybe on the metro, maybe on the train. She's going to want to follow up, maybe learn something, watch a video. And that's not something she's going to do sitting at home, because at home she's got a job to do at home. Or she's got purpose at home. Or really she just wants to sit and have a glass of wine at home and not watch how-to videos. But you need to make it mobile so everything is transparent. Everything bleeds across channels. And you need to provide her tools specific to helping. So whether it's scanning a picture or scanning a product and being able to retrieve all of the information. In this case, it's recommendations on where to plant this particular flower. But bringing it all together across in-store, online, and mobile creates differentiation. Now, recently, Homebase just completed their repurposing of their marketing approach. And they're already seeing dividends outpacing the previous growth. They didn't open new stores. They just changed how they engage with their customers. Now, the examples I just gave you, you're probably sitting back saying, I get that. I know how to do that. And the next one I'm going to talk about is where the future starts to come in. And the machine wants to fight me. I want to talk to you about cognitive commerce. And when I talk about cognitive commerce, it's really about taking all that we're doing across the channels from a marketing and selling perspective and introducing a new piece of data or a new action, a new activity. And in this case, I want to share with you an example that we're doing with the North Face. For those of you who have heard about our Watson technology, this is Watson inside. And it's about building an experience in a retail business that helps a customer find the best piece of merchandise. Now, many of you will say, well, I have search and that can do it. But I'll take you through this example, and I think you'll find that it's a bit different. So I asked the North Face a question. I'm gearing up for a 14-day backpack trip. What equipment do I need? Simple enough question, right? Well, Watson goes off and has a think about it and comes back and brings me back a list of merchandise that I'm probably going to need. And it tells me it has this list. Now, I want to know what technical pack, because I'm going to Fitzroy and I'm going to be hiking, and I need to know that I have the best backpack possible, that it's going to survive all 14 days. Well, you think about it, when you enter in that information, how many of your product management teams have spent time researching every possible way your product's going to be used? Probably none, right? It's paint, you paint it on the wall. Well, what if my 3-year-old writes on it? Well, I didn't put that in the product's description, so search doesn't understand. Well, the idea here in cognitive commerce is it's looking beyond what you say on your web. And it's looking beyond what the customer has told you about themselves. It's looking beyond that, pulling all of that together and making a decision for you. So Watson comes back and recommends a certain type of pack. Now, this particular pack has ABS. Can somebody Google ABS for me real quick? Anybody got their phone open? Odds are the first thing that comes back is going to be anti-locking braking systems. ABS, or a name of a company. But That's not what Watson comes back for. It talks about the ABS system being avalanche protection. It's an inflation system in the pack to help you in case of an avalanche. Well, if you just Googled it, you wouldn't have gotten that answer because Google doesn't know the difference and doesn't know what your intent was. But in this interaction, it does. And it provided a video about it. So now I'm going to say, well, okay, well, how is that rated? Now, normally, you would say, oh, but on my website, I have ratings and reviews from my customers. But that's only your customers. What about the collective good? How do you help build advocacy? You look at what everybody says about it, and you share what everybody says about that product, so that it isn't just about your opinion. You've built advocacy with your customer. So it brings back reviews, and we say we'll go with the Prophet 65. Now, this experience is about bringing all of those opportunities together, making the moment matter by introducing an intelligence that is more than just resides on your e-commerce site. Now, in order to achieve this, I would challenge you that you need to think about how do you move the customer back to the heart of your business as you're continuing to create omnichannel businesses, and I like to call them retail businesses because omnichannel is just another marketing word that my marketing guys made up, or my competitors maybe, but either way, it's the reality that it's just our business. Oh, I'm down 1-0. How many minutes left? Not good. Anyways, the U.S. is losing 1-0. I'm going to cry now. At least I can keep going on my presentation. But context is key in this omni-channel. It's about pulling together the reality and the understanding of how you engage your customer, how your customer lives. And if I had to paint an illustration for you, it'd be like putting your best employee in your company, your best salesperson, and having them live with every single one of your customers. So, oh, don't call Joe today because Joe's down 1-0 on Germany. He's not going to buy anything. Unless you're selling beer, wine, vodka, right? Then call Joe because he's going to need it after Germany beats the U.S. That's the reality. How do you know that? Otherwise, you're wasting money marketing to me. Well, if you start looking at the signals that Joe as a customer sends, and you saw that he walked up on stage with the U.S. jersey on. He's got members of the audience telling him the scores, even though he doesn't know them, but you're very generous. And now you can take that context and put it in with how you decide to transact or to engage Joe as a customer. And that's just like having your best sales rep watch me all day long and decide when the right moment is to hit me with a campaign or to save the money and don't waste our time. We'll get to Joe tomorrow after he recovers and he finds out whether or not the U.S. will get to play in the second round. But all of these come in and they build a common interaction, a common history, a common context. Now, over time, you have three main goals in this. You want to connect your customers and your value chain. And that's about building this transparency. Transparency to where you're housing inventory, transparency into new merchandise coming in, transparency into the relationship you have with your end consumer. Because at the end of the day, it's all about them. Understand. And understand transcends what you and I think as business leaders about CRM. Right? And I hear that term used quite a bit, and it was actually used twice today, and I want to pick on CRM because I think CRM is a misnomer. It's said, but it's not what's meant when people say CRM. Understanding your customer goes much deeper than looking at the carts that they've had, the items they've added to their cart, and when they bought, when they last purchased, and what they've told you about themselves in a profile. It goes way beyond that. It's not about understanding how to greet them when the call center gets a call and it auto-detects that it's Joe Dittmar's cell phone calling me, I can greet him, "Hi, Joe, how are you doing today?" It goes beyond that. It's about understanding everything that's going on around me. How many kids I have, whether or not I was home this month, whether I was on the road, am I in Singapore, am I in London, am I in Paris, am I on my way to Chile? Understanding context is key to understanding the individual. Because if you think about it, we've had good CRM systems for the last 15 years. And the customers are still giving us feedback that you as a business and IBM as a business don't understand the end consumer. They're saying it for everybody. And then engage. How do we change the engagement to leverage all of the information that we understand about you and everything you have shared with us about your life and about what you expect from us as a brand, and tying that in and connecting to you in a meaningful way. When you want, how you want, where you want, why you want it. And for some, that's presence zones. The context of your mobile phone jumping on a Wi-Fi network and somebody understanding where you are because they're getting free Wi-Fi service. That's a step in the right direction. It's not the end game, but it's a step in the right direction. It's mobile plans getting larger and larger quantities so that we can pass more and more data between the cell phone and businesses that you engage in, that you opt into. And all of that evolution is occurring. Now, just a minute on this, and I promise, and I was actually, I can't tell, this says I'm ahead, but I thought I was behind on time. But some of the things that you may not know about IBM, and I hope at the fact that I'm up here without a tie on tells you that this is a new IBM, kind of like the US is a new football team. If we get out of the group of death, it's a good day. A really good day. I would be happy if we just got out of the group of death. And if we, for some reason, ended up in first place and got to play France and lose to France in the group of 6 or beyond the group of 16, that would be great too, because we would have gotten one game further than we ever gotten before. And we would be happy to go home. But it's a new day. It's a new company. Our chief executive officer is a brilliant woman who is focused on changing what we are known for. Many of you think IBM, you think hardware. If your CEO was in the room, he'd probably walk away because he doesn't know what to say to an IBM person. Well, the reality is the IBM people are just like you. I'm a former VP of e-commerce, a VP in retail, running a business. And that transformation has allowed us to acquire new companies that are focused on business. That has allowed us to build new consulting skills that are focused on transforming your experience, whether you're Wimbledon or all the way down to a small business based out of an island. We've got those interactions going on today. And I'd be remiss to say if I didn't point out that we have a very large community of business partners and associates that service this space, this customer interaction space. And the products we brought to market are number one or number 2 by Gartner and Forrester globally. So it is a new IBM, it's a new day, and I wanted to share that with you. Thank you for taking the time to allow me to come. And I don't know if we have questions. I think we have some time for questions if someone in the audience has a microphone and wants to help. No questions. We can talk about anything.